In the text Why Boys Don't Like Reading, the writer debunks several theories and generalisations about boys and reading. He then goes on to describe the problem as being about gender construct and how reading is a feminine construct which contradicts the idea of active masculinity. I enjoyed this text because, well, I agree with the gender construct theory, but also I like the way it was written. It's really engaging, funny, but also serious and authoritative in tone. In this presentation, we'll look at how the writer uses language to achieve this tone. And in particular, we'll look at how the writer uses rhetoric. Let's start with the text. The first thing that jumps out at me is how the writer starts some of his sentences with but, and or. I find these bits really engaging. Having these words at the beginning of the sentences kind of draws my attention and really emphasises the point. But how does it do this? Well, if you think about compound sentences, we know that these words are coordinating conjunctions. They're supposed to go in the middle of the sentence to connect two clauses, not at the beginning of the sentence. So if the writer was following proper grammar rules, the sentences should look like this. See how by following the rules, we've lost that dramatic effect. So the use of coordinating conjunctions at the start of the sentence has a powerful rhetorical effect, and here's how. Another way that the writer draws us in is by using questions, rhetorical questions. Look at this. These are really effective. By using these questions, the writer is interacting with us. He's making us consider his points and formulate an answer. This involves us and engages us. But not only this, the real reason that these questions are rhetorical or persuasive is because the answer is obvious. Look. There is no doubt as to the answer to these questions, and they're exactly the answers that the writer wants us to think, the answer that he's leading us towards. This is effective because it makes us think that we're independently and actively engaging, when really all we're doing is agreeing with the writer's points because of the way he's leading us in this direction. It's really persuasive. And if you look around you and listen to politicians or read any persuasive text, you'll see rhetorical questions everywhere. Thirdly, let's have a look at how the writer uses repetition. Have a look at this. This is another example of persuasive or rhetorical writing. And again, politicians always use this technique in their speeches. But how does repetition persuade? What's going on? Well, if we look at this more closely, we can see these parts are repeated. And it's not just the words that are repeated, but the structure of the sentence. Now, this repetition sticks in our head. That's because it's got a regular rhythm that's easy to remember. You know, like the way a song sticks in your head. Also, in this case, it's clever because the repetition of the structure exactly echoes the repetition of all these tired, cliched theories that the writer is dismissing. So you see that the use of the repetition is not only memorable, but can also express the writer's attitude towards the subject. The last technique to examine is the use of colloquialisms. Have a look at these sections. Do we normally use this language in formal writing? Probably not. In fact, these words are much more common in spoken language. That's why they're called colloquialisms, that is, language used in ordinary and familiar conversations. So what effect does this have? Well, firstly, it makes me feel that the writer is speaking to me directly, especially this question tag. This is really common to spoken language, and as well as being engaging, it invites agreement. It's a form of rhetorical question. Another strong effect, in my view, is that the writer uses these colloquialisms to dismiss the theories he's discussing. Look at how this word, stuff, is really vague and dismissive. In my view, the use of these casual throwaway words expresses his contemptuous attitude towards those old theories. So we've looked at 4 different rhetorical techniques that the writer uses. Now, I keep using this word, rhetorical. What is rhetoric? Well, rhetoric is a Greek word. It's the idea of persuasion through speaking or writing. The ancient Greeks viewed this as an art form, something to study and perfect. In classical rhetoric, there are 3 main planks. There's the appeal to reason, that's called logos, and that's about using logic to appeal to the intellect. And then there's the appeal to the emotion, pathos, and that's where a lot of the language techniques that we've seen hit home. They engage with our emotions. And then there's ethos. That means establishing credibility in terms of your character and your reputation, and drawing on sort of authority. The next time you hear a politician's speech, listen out for their use of rhetoric. Rhetoric might be an ancient Greek idea, but it's very much part of our culture now and a common convention in our discourse. So we've looked at how the writer uses rhetorical language. Notice how the rhetorical bits are centred around the section where the writer is dismissing ideas he doesn't like or referring back to them. When he's talking about the new theory, there's none of this rhetoric, just formal standard English, the kind of complex sentences we saw in the last lesson. Clearly this is intentional, and it has the effect of giving Maloney's theories authority and credibility, in contrast to the old theories which are being dismissed. Next, we'll do some activities to explore rhetoric and sentence structure a bit more.